Hey, folks. Yeah. Today I want to talk about cannabinoids in culture. This has been an interesting ride. Being born in, 1951, for me, having come through watching all of this stuff that's occurred over cannabis through that period of time, when I was a young man, this was something that jazz musicians and beatniks, and stuff used. Eventually the 60s came on, the hippies picked it up, and of course all any of us knew about the stuff because of disinformation, government suppression and propaganda, was that it was bad for you, it was unhealthy, it was very illegal. All kinds of terrible things could happen to you from using this, and the only reason anybody ever used it is because it made them high. People like getting high. Yeah, well, that was the word, and I believed it along with most other Americans. That was, aside from maybe a few of the stupid wars and things we've been involved in, I have a feeling that cannabis is one of the greatest disinformation programs that the U.S. government has ever engaged in. It probably goes right down with the Vietnam War and UFOs and who knows what else, and who the heck killed Kennedy anyway. Cannabis is like that. Never has the truth hardly ever been spoken about it out of the mouth of anybody involved in the U.S. government. It's pretty much been a perpetual lie. There's probably a lot of reasons. There was this Christian ethic prohibition thing, Molly Hatchet and the booze and just plain getting high, period. It didn't matter what it was, whether you had a bottle of red wine or whether it was a joint or a syringe of heroin, everything. It's all evil. No one should ever change their state of being, which I completely disagree with. Yeah, there are people at times that I seriously recommend you just go get drunk, will you? Just go get drunk. Sometimes I think we need that. I certainly at times need that. It's important to me to remove myself from myself because I'm being a complete jerk. Yeah, that's what intoxication can do for you. It can shut you down for a while. So vacation. Let's see, what was it? Oh, yes, Aldous Huxley in Brave New World. There was Soma was the approved intoxicant of the culture, and people would go on Soma vacations. Later on we called that LSD trips. But yeah, take a Soma vacation. Anyway, so I was brought up in the great myth along with the rest of us Americans, thinking that was the devil's weed and so on. I had no idea. I really didn't have any strong idea of the actual value of this plant medically. Okay, I really didn't understand how important cannabis really had been for thousands of years. It was a main pharmaceutical item, it was a source of oil from seed, a source of protein from seed. It was even human feed. Friends of mine from Iran will tell me stories of walking around the markets in Tehran and eating roasted salted hemp seeds. It's a favorite snack like popcorn there. The fiber, of course, the fiber from the stalks on the hemp plant. I don't know. I'm sure some of you know this. It's becoming more common that the word cannabis, all right, canvas is the English bastardization of the Latin word cannabis. Okay. And so at one time, if you were going to sail to the New World in a ship, the rigging, the ropes, the sails, you couldn't have gone anywhere without the cannabis plant. That's how important it has been to our cultures. There would have been no trade routes. None of this stuff would have really happened. We'd still be walking, if it hadn't been for cannabis, or AKA canvas. That's how the Midwest where I grew up, the wild ditchweed is everywhere. And why? Well, World War II, the Japanese cut us off from the Philippines. We couldn't get the fiber we needed that they were raising as cannabis, and we'd import it. So we didn't have that nasty weed here in the Corn Belt. Well, we couldn't get it, so we had to plant it in the Corn Belt. They issued permits. Farmers all over the Midwest grew the stuff. The birds spread the seeds everywhere. And we now have wild ditchweed growing over, Iowa, Illinois, Missouri, Ohio, Indiana, Wisconsin, Minnesota, Michigan. It's all over there. That's how important it was. Yep. As recent as World War II, we grew this stuff in mass as an emergency. Rope. We had to have the fiber for rope. And yet today, there is no better fiber. Mostly the whole cannabis prohibition thing started with yellow journalism. That would be William Randolph Hearst, the media mogul on the West Coast, working in cahoots, really, with Harry Anslinger, who was the head of what eventually became the FBI. I don't know, they called themselves G-men at the time. But Anslinger, he would have been what J. Edgar Hoover later was, and so on. But Anslinger was a notorious racist. He hated anything that didn't have a white skin on it, okay? And he knew that most of the cannabis used in the United States of America was being used by Mexicans and African Americans, okay? That was the main culture at that time for this plant. And so, working with William Randolph Hearst, they did yellow journalism, and they slammed the plant. They created a media spectacle that convinced Congress that you kill your dad with a ice pick, or whatever, if you smoke this stuff. So they managed to get it to Schedule I illegalized narcotic, and even the name, most of you are familiar with the term marijuana, which you'll never hear roll from my lips. It was Mexican, Latin American slang term that Anslinger referred to the plant with that term to associate it with Mexican culture because he was a racist, etc., etc. And so they adopted the word. So it represents really a negative past and something to get over. Call this stuff grass, call it pot, call it cannabis, call it whatever you want to, call it weed, just don't call it marijuana. So that's how the culture kind of got the way that it became, to where even I'd been indoctrinated by propaganda when I was living in California at the time, when they were passing, or at least putting initiatives on the ballots for medical marijuana usage or medical cannabis usage. There I slipped, because that's what they were calling it too at the time. That's changing. But yeah, that initiative, when I saw it, now I was aware that, in the case of people with wasting conditions from AIDS, cancer, and so on, that the cannabis could improve their appetite. The cannabis is well known for giving people the munchies. It also elevates the state of mind. It elevates a mood. And so, if you're on chemotherapy and maybe dying and don't want to eat, can't eat, miserable, the cannabis could give you some relief. And I could see that. All right, so I said, all right, there's a medical value there. Traditionally, it had been used with glaucoma because it reduces the pressure inside an eyeball, and it had supposedly been used as asthma relief. I have friends who have had asthma who claim they never have asthma if they use cannabis. I don't know. I suppose it relaxes something, but that was all I knew about the medical values of this plant. Mostly when I looked at the initiative, I said, oh man, this is going to sock it to the U.S. government. This is going to create so much pain and trouble for these guys, and they deserve it because they've been lying to us for years about the plant. It's not an evil plant. I see this whole thing really as being plant fascism. if we treated people the same way we treat some plants, there'd be a lot of lawsuits, all right? But, plants can't take you to court. They haven't got lawyers and so on. And so you can lie about plants all you want to. But the attempt to try to control and suppress plant material with the public, I see as wrong. It's plant fascism. So when it comes to manufacturing, if you're taking a plant and you're going to convert it, it's the government's business. Really, it is. Yeah, control industry. If you're going to be selling this stuff, the IRS should be involved. Permits, taxes, whatever. That's what it's all about. We don't get away from taxes, and so taxing cannabis, that's the government's business. But telling people that they can't have a plant in their garden, that's wrong. That's fascism, man. It should not be. All right, it shouldn't be. So I have been very opposed to it all. And when I saw the initiatives in California, I said, "Oh yeah." And it's created quite a wave. It was a shock wave that has moved across the United States, and a considerable number of states today now that you can actually go buy cannabis if you want it, no problem. Here in Hawaii, you have to have some medical issue still. They'll be one of the last to change, and it's not because they oppose cannabis. It's not that. It's just that Hawaii usually never does anything that isn't in line with the federal. We're just that way here. Yeah, and so, when they finally take it off Schedule 1, things will change here too. When they were actually free to apply science instead of hearsay and propaganda, well, we began to learn some amazing things about this plant. Now, if for no other reason, I love crops, obviously, and crops like pineapples, wonderful crops. I love them. They're perfect plants. Corn, I love corn, The banana is another one of the plants that I adore. It's a wonderful crop. So many applications. Wrap your food in it, easy to grow, doesn't take long to yield, blah, blah. Eat it green, eat it ripe, Some plants are miracles like that, and cannabis is one of them. In my mind, it is the farmer's friend. And the last 70-some years that the government's been leaning on this thing and lying about it, they've really been doing a disservice to the populace in this country, particularly the people with the agricultural base on the farms. This stuff, it's why Anslinger with Hearst and DuPont was the third party involved in this. He had the patent for nylon. And so hemp was the only source of rope fiber. Nylon might be a source, but it wouldn't compete against hemp fiber because it was expensive, had to be made from coal, took massive amounts of industry and mining, whereas hemp fiber, the farmer could grow it from a seed and process the fiber with simple machines right on the farm. And so the farmer had control over the basic fiber, as a near finished product to just ship it to people who made rope, canvas and stuff. Well, DuPont knew he had no hope. And so they started this campaign and they slammed the plant. And they robbed the American farmer of one of the most marvelous crops we had. For thousands of years, this plant has been fiber. The plant has been food for animals and humans. The plant has produced some of the highest quality oil you can imagine from the seeds. The active ingredients in the plant are both a great intoxicant that's not nearly as dangerous as alcohol, but also there are so many medical values that I was not aware of because of all the propaganda. I have become more aware and realize that as time goes on that we're going to learn more and more and more about this plant. And we're going to find out that its medical properties are really quite amazing. CBD, for instance, from industrial hemp, has now entered our marketplace. You can get it on Amazon. It's over here at the drugstores, locally. It's become so common that it's no longer associated even with cannabis, so to speak. Some people who would never smoke pot use CBD all the time now. And so it's moving in. We're finding out there's a whole lot of other cannabinoids, because in the process we found out about the Delta 8, which was the THC, which was an industrial hemp material, which apparently is also intoxicating too. But we keep discovering different. A friend of mine told me about THCV, that's what it was. They have a few strains that raise this. This is an anti-munchy cannabis. You got a cannabis that actually suppresses appetite rather than stimulates it, that have that isomer THC in them. So there's a lot of interesting stuff that can happen from this pharmaceutically. And it wasn't long ago I had one of the guys who watched the show here contact me about whether he could send me some of his CBD product. And I said, yeah, sure. I hadn't really been using any of this, but I said I would do that. And so I got this good-looking bottle here. This is labeled Tommy Knapp, The Power of Hemp. All natural massage oil, 100 milligrams CBD per bottle. It's got a bunch of other essential oils in here. There's almond oil and lavender oil and stuff like that. Anyway, guy sent it to me as a trial here. I guess you can contact them if you want to at TommyKnappCBD.com. I don't know where the products are available, but that's where you can get started. Anyway, they sent me this stuff, and I've been experimenting with it. For me, this is kind of a first. For years, when I've had medical cannabis card for arthritis in California and here in Hawaii too. Hawaii, it's not directly called arthritis. It's chronic pain. Chronic pain here, it's called. Anyway, California, it's for arthritis, but yeah, my hands are messed. Too much hard work, mechanic, musician, the guitar stuff. I have carpal tunnel syndrome, and I have arthritis in the joints of the fingers and all sorts of problems with my hands. They tend to swell, they get stiff, and so on. So I use this product when I got it as a massage, a rub in on my hands. And I found that it actually relieved some of the pain. It made my hands feel more limber. And as I was saying, over the years, with having a medical card, mostly we turn any cannabis that we have here into cannabis butter, cook it, and eat it. Okay, I don't think smoking is a great idea. And so I tend to, use cookies, brownies or something, and in the process of making the butter, I always end up with my hands completely drenched, in cannabinoid-laden butter, and while squeezing it out and so on and handling it. And what I found is that my hands would become very limber and would lose their pain and would get really nice and free feeling when I got completely coated in, cannabis butter that I was making for brownies and cookies. Well, this basically does the same thing. Now, there's no THC in there, so you could never get high on this product at all. But apparently the CBD's got in here, and maybe some of the other plant oils. They make my hands feel loose, limber. The joints don't hurt. It takes about 2 applications a day for me to have normal hands. It's not too much to ask. It smells good. Definitely, I smell the lavender oil in here, which of course has a calming sense. And so when you put it on and rub it like this under your nose, because these are essential oils, a lot of the nose is important when it comes to this, because the terpenes in essential oils, which again goes back to cannabis and culture, terpenes actually plug into receptors in the brain, and they have reactions psychologically. Various terpenes do. The lavender oil induces calming. It's a soothing thing. So they actually have an effect mentally, and you have to smell them to get the effect. So, that's a short little commercial for the guy who sent me the oil. Thank you very much. I like it. I have tried it with gout pain, which I periodically experience if I happen to drink a little too much beer or something. And so I currently do have small pain in the left ankle. And, sorry, CBD don't seem to work on gout. It does work on arthritis, though. I'm sure plenty of you have that junk. Well, there you have it, folks. The change in cannabis and culture. We can look forward to far more change. There's still a whole lot of people out there who are still completely and totally indoctrinated and think this is horrible, that what's happening here, that the whole country's going to pot. Yeah, well, it's not true. This is really a blessing. And if you haven't, at least if you haven't experimented with the CBD products, I highly recommend. Try using some of the CBD products. You may find you get good results from them. I have. But as far as cannabis is concerned, it has a bright future. And I think we'll be gradually liberating the plant from the bondage that it had been put under by foolish people who were greedy and just looking to make money on their agendas. And we all paid the price for it. So when we get over it, we can go back to cannabis just being another plant. This is sad too, because sadly it will never just be another plant because of what they did. But at least if we can get it so that it's not a criminal action and we can benefit from having it in our societies, that'll be an accomplishment. Aloha. Y'all hang loose. Try some CBD oil.